Okay, so this is the Bible study for April 28th, 2021, and it's continuing our fulfilled series in the Gospel of John, chapter 15, starting in verse 26, which is right at the end of the chapter, and going through chapter 16, verse 33. And the text says, "When the advocate comes, whom I will send you from the Father, the Spirit of truth who goes out from the Father, he will testify about me. And you also must testify, for you have been with me from the beginning. All this I have told you so that you will not fall away. They will put you out of the synagogue. In fact, the time is coming when anyone who kills you will think they are offering a service to God. They will do such things because they have not known the Father or me. I've told you this so that when their time comes, you will remember that I warned you about them. I did not tell you this from the beginning because I was with you, but now I am going to him who sent me. None of you asked me, 'Where are you going?' Rather, you are filled with grief because I have said these things. But very truly I tell you, it is for your good that I am going away. Unless I go away, the advocate will not come to you. But if I go, I will send him to you. When he comes, he will prove the world to be wrong about sin and righteousness and judgment. About sin, because people do not believe in me. About righteousness, because I am going to the Father where you can see me no longer. And about judgment, because the prince of this world now stands condemned. I have much more to say to you, more than you can now bear. But when he, the Spirit of truth, comes, he will guide you into all truth. He will not speak on his own. He will speak only what he hears, and he will tell you what is yet to come. He will glorify me because it is from me that he will receive he will make known to you. All that belongs to the Father is mine. That is why I said the Spirit will receive from me what he will make known to you." Jesus went on to say, "In a little while you will see me no more, and then after a little while you will see me." At this, some of his disciples said to one another, "What does he mean by saying, 'In a little while you will see me no more, and then after a little while you will see me'? And because I am going to the Father." They kept saying, "What does he mean by a little while? We don't understand what he is saying." Jesus saw that they wanted to ask him about this, so he said to them, "Are you asking one another what I meant when I said, 'In a little while you will see me no more, and then after a little while you will see me'? Very truly I tell you, you will weep and mourn while the world rejoices. You will grieve, but your grief will turn to joy. A woman giving birth to a child has pain because her time has come. But when her baby is born, she forgets the anguish because of her joy that the child is born into this world. So with you, now is your time of grief, but I will see you again, and you will rejoice, and no one will take away your joy. In that day, you will no longer ask me anything. Very truly, I tell you, my Father will give you whatever you ask in my name. Until now, you have not asked for anything in my name. Ask and you will receive, and your joy will be complete. Though I have been speaking figuratively, a time is coming when I will no longer use this kind of language, but will tell you plainly about my Father. In that day, you will ask in my name. I am not saying that I will ask the Father on your behalf. No, the Father himself loves you because you have loved me and have believed that I came from God. I came from the Father and into the world. Now I am leaving the world and going back to the Father." Then Jesus' disciples said, "Now you are speaking clearly and without figures of speech. Now we can see that you know all things and that you do not even need to have anyone ask you questions. This makes us believe that you came from God." "Do you now believe?" Jesus replied. "A time is coming, and in fact has come, when you will be scattered, each to your own home. You will leave me all alone. Yet I am not alone, for my Father is with me. I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. So, number one says, what does Jesus say will happen when the advocate comes in verses 26 and 27. So in 26, it says, when the advocate comes, whom I will send you to the Father, the Spirit of truth who goes out from the Father, he will testify about me. So um, all of that before the final statement is just a description or helping us understand who this advocate is that he's talking about. The advocate is sent from the Father, sent by Jesus from the Father. He is the Spirit of truth who goes out from the Father, and he will testify about Jesus. So he will testify about Jesus. And then in verse 27, it says, and you also must testify, for you have been with me from the beginning. So A and B are the Spirit will come and will testify about Jesus, and B, we also must testify. So number two says, who does this mean should testify about him? A, just those who have been with him from the beginning, which we might interpret 2017. B, we have the testimony of those who were with him from the beginning, recorded in the Gospels, and Jesus also calls us to carry this testimony on. So that would be sort of a continuation. We are declaring the testimony that was given to us by those apostles who were with him from the beginning. And then C, anyone who receives the Spirit of truth. So I would say we could definitely say A and B, but also we need to understand that if we receive this advocate, if we receive this Spirit, and this Spirit is living in us, the Spirit of truth, then we also will testify, because the Spirit that lives within us testifies. Um, and so that's something that, we can parse words and we can kind of try to break this verse down and try to figure out who exactly he's speaking to. But in the end, if we have the Spirit of truth within us, then we will testify regarding Jesus. We will testify about him, because the Spirit that inhabits us testifies about him. And so it becomes a natural part of who we are as his disciples, inhabited by the Spirit, the advocate that he sent, that we also testify about the one who sent the Spirit. Number three says, why has Jesus told his disciples all this? According to chapter 16, verse 1, it says, all this I have told you so that you will not fall away. So there's a couple of things implied in this that we're going to break down as we go along. The implication is, one, that there's something about this Spirit, the Spirit of truth. There's something about the things that Jesus has told us and warned us about, and knowing that these are coming, that will help for us and for those disciples that he was speaking to on that day to not fall away. So there's something about all this that will help us not fall away. Also, sort of implied in all of this is that there will be some reason that we would fall away. So I think for us as disciples of Jesus Christ, for us as those who have come after those original disciples, to assume that the message of the gospel and the message of Jesus Christ is the easy life for us, would be to really misunderstand the reasons for everything that Jesus said, and really not hear the warnings in what Jesus said. And so when Jesus says, I've told you all this, and I'm telling you about the Spirit of truth that's coming to you, the advocate that will be with you, I'm telling you all of this because I don't want you to fall away. And without knowing this, you might be caught unprepared, And without having this spirit of truth that I'm telling you about, without having this advocate, you might be finding yourself vulnerable to falling away, because there will be conditions under which, without warning and without the advocate, the spirit of truth that you need, you would fall away. So there are going to be moments of opposition. In fact, perhaps there will be a life filled with opposition that is ahead of you that would cause you to fall away if it were not for the warnings that Jesus gave us. And let me just say this. Um, I'm a big guy. Most of you know that. Most of you know me. I'm 6 foot tall, and I'm right around 300 pounds, and I am big enough that it takes a lot to knock me over. It's unlikely that small children are going to come up and push me, and I'm just going to topple. My feet are size 14, so I have a sturdy base also. And it's unlikely that anybody's going to knock me over. But if there was ever a chance of me being knocked over, it would be if somebody ran up to me and hit me hard, pushed me hard, and I was not expecting it. And I was not braced and I was not ready. And so that's the moment when I would be most likely to fall if I was not braced and not ready. And so Jesus is warning the disciples that they need to be ready, because there's going to be conditions that would cause them to fall away, if it weren't for the fact that they knew this was coming in advance and they had been given the tools that they needed to deal with it. Particularly the advocate, the spirit of truth. Number 4 says, what is the all this in 16:1? So 16:1 starts, all this I have told you. So what has he told you? If this is what's going to keep us from falling away, then we better know what it is that he's told us, because what is the all this that he's told us? What is the all this in 16:1 that Jesus has told his disciples? A, remain in him. Remember, don't forget that we just talked about this. Remain in him. We got to stay connected to the vine. We've got to stay connected to the life-giving flow, the source, so that we don't find ourselves empty when opposition comes, and that would cause us to, or make us more likely to be unprepared and fall away. B, I will send another advocate or counselor. This is something that he has told us just recently in this passage. We have recorded that Jesus told his disciples he's going to send another advocate or counselor. C, the world will hate you because it hated him. In the passage just before this, it tells us the world will hate you because it hates me. That's what Jesus said. And then D, maybe even more. All this, not just some of this. So we don't know what he was sort of trying to bracket or encompass in all this statement. Was it just the last few verses? Was it just the last few chapters? Or was it everything that Jesus had been teaching his disciples for these years that he had been with them? Is it everything that John has recorded in his gospel that Jesus shared with his disciples? Perhaps all this, everything that I've taught you, everything I've told you is going to happen, every preparation that I've made, everything that I've been doing and saying in front of you all these years, all this I have told you so that you will not fall away. We have to believe that probably every bit of what Jesus told his disciples was in preparation for this moment that he knew was coming when he would be away from them. Number 5, why, according to verses 16, 2 and 3, might they or we be tempted to fall away? A, religious people will call them, us, ungodly. putting them out of the synagogue. So he says, look, you're going to be tempted to fall away. I'm telling you all this stuff so that you won't fall away when this happens. In fact, when it happens, you'll know that I told you it was going to happen. So you're ready for it. And you're not thinking this means that you're off track. See, one of the problems that we have as believers is when we go through hard times, when something happens to us that is not pleasant, we assume immediately that means we're out of step with Jesus. We must be doing something wrong. We must have gotten on God's bad side. And there's no way that God would want us to go through this difficult time. There's no way that God would want us to suffer. And so when we encounter those difficult times, we immediately think, oh, we're off track. And Jesus is saying, look, here's what's going to happen is the religious people are going to tell you you're off track. The people that hold the keys to the kingdom, or at least so they think, the people that that stand at the gateway of entry into the religious life, that this is what God has called us to do and to be. Those people are going to put you out and say that you don't get to come in, and they're going to suggest that you're the one that's ungodly while they're godly, and you're going to be tempted to question yourself and say, wait, are we off track here? Pastor Bain used to tell us when he preached to us over those years, he used to say, I don't think Jesus was called Beelzebub. Jesus was told that he was casting out demons by the devil, essentially. And he was told, he said, Pastor Bain would say, I don't think Jesus said, oh, am I really the devil? Am I really Beelzebub? Am I really casting out demons as some other force or power other than the living God? Jesus did not question himself in that way. Jesus was so connected to the Father that he was confident in who he was before the Father. So he didn't stop and ask, is what they're saying about me true? And so now he's warning his disciples, they are going to say these things about you. They hated me, they're going to hate you too. The religious leaders are going to put you out of the synagogue, and you are going to be tempted to question yourself and think, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe all this Jesus stuff we've been talking about all this time is incorrect. And maybe I really am off base. And you'll be tempted to go back and apologize and say, I didn't really mean it. I didn't really think all this. And let me back into the synagogue so I can be approved as godly and right by you. And we're going to be tempted to do that. Let me just tell you, in the Christian church, it's no different. If you do the right thing, it will not be widely accepted even within the church, because the church is filled, the institutional church, the church small c in America particularly, but I'm sure throughout the world, is filled with people that really aren't on the same page with Jesus. And I hate to say that. I'm not saying they're all that way. I'm not saying there's no Christians. I'm not saying that all churches are evil and you should just check out of the church. I believe that the best place to change the church is from within the church. And so the best place to get the institutional church, if you will, back on track is from within. And so, but there are religious people that are not truly making disciples of Jesus Christ all over the country, all over the world. And when you go out and do it, they're going to tell you you're the one that's doing it wrong. And we just need to be aware of that and prepared for that, and because that's going to happen. B, they will be such enemies of the religious norms that people will start to think that killing them will be a service to God. Imagine that. I don't think we're quite there in the American church just yet, but the religious people don't yet kill people that they think are off base, and consider it a service to God. But I wouldn't be surprised if it happens in the future. It's happened in the past. See, there will be opposition. Doing the will of God will not always be affirmed, approved, or popular. Jesus knew this and intended for his disciples to follow him and do the will of God anyway. Let me just tell you that doing compassionate ministries is not popular. I mean, everybody likes the thought of it, and they like you to do it out there while they minister to people that maybe are easier to minister to, or they gather a crowd that aren't really getting deep with the Lord at all. And they'll everybody thinks that that it's a good idea, but they're not interested in doing it. And one of the challenges is that we like to do it as long as we can get all the credit and the accolades and all the things that we need. We like to do it as long as it doesn't, as long as our income doesn't go down because that's the ministry we're doing, or as long as our attendance numbers don't go down because not everybody wants to go and do that sort of ministry. And it's hard ministry, and there's a lot of in and out, and so they're not as the ministry that we do in compassionate ministries. A lot of the folks are not. It takes longer to get them as faithful as some people who have been raised in the church and raised to be faithful and consistent in attendance and giving and all of those things. So you go do the right thing, and all the numbers go down, and then people are at district assembly or looking at the paperwork, and they look at it and they say, what's wrong with this church? They must be doing it wrong. No, I think we're a part of a great denomination and a great church, but I also know that it's very easy, even for godly people, to get caught up in nickels and noses, and get caught up in the things that make the organization look good, instead of the things that are actually fulfilling the will and the call of God. So it's just so easy for that to happen. It's easy for us to get caught up in the wrong things instead of the right things. Number 6, why, according to verse 4, didn't he tell them this before? So he says, I have told you this so that when your time comes, you will remember that I warned you about them. I did not tell you this from the beginning because I was with you. So there's some aspect of Jesus' presence with them, physically walking this earth with them, that made him feel like, I'm going to show them. I don't need to tell them, but now I'm going, and I'm going to die, be buried, raised from the dead, ascend into heaven. And when that happens, they need to know this, because we love to say this advocate. I think it's true in scripture that this advocate is more able to help us than Jesus walking this earth was able to help us. And he says, I need to go because you need this advocate. You need the Spirit of truth. You need the Spirit with you. And it can't come, he can't come unless I go. And so Jesus said that. So the implication of all of that is that we need the Holy Spirit living within us more than we needed Jesus walking beside us. There's something about him inhabiting us that was a part of the plan all along, that was necessary, and we couldn't just settle for him walking beside us. But there's something about, he knew that while he was walking with us, that we didn't need to know everything because he was there. But when he sends his Spirit, he needs to tell us, because we have trouble listening to the Spirit the same way we hear somebody talking to us in the flesh right in front of us. So now he's telling us things that we're going to need to know even when the advocate comes, And we may not listen to the advocate as readily when he starts to say those things. So Jesus is preparing his disciples for a time when he is not physically present and they need to know and remember some things that he is telling them. And the Spirit will help them remember, but he needed to say it out loud before he left. The second part of this question says, why then, according to verses 5 through 11, is it so important that he go and the advocate come? So he says, unless I go away, the advocate will not come to you. That is the most significant part about this. When he comes, he's going to do some things. He's going to prove the world wrong about sin and righteousness and judgment. So he's at work. He's actively at work. And we need that Spirit in us and about us and here on this earth to be actively at work. And I already talked about that a little bit. Where does the Spirit get the truth? He will make known. Now, this is really important. It says, but when he, the Spirit of truth, comes, this is verse 13, he will guide you into all truth. He will not speak on his own. He will speak only what he hears, and he will tell you what is yet to come. He will glorify me because it is from me that he will receive what he will make known to you. Jesus is telling them that he's the one that is telling the Spirit what to say to us. So what the Spirit makes known to us is from Jesus. Now, verse 15 says, all that belongs to the Father is mine. That is why I said the Spirit will receive from me what he will make known to you. We say, oh, what happened to the Father? I thought the Spirit goes out from the Father. Well, yes, but everything the Father has belongs to the Son. Okay? And so that we're getting some Trinitarian teaching here. We're beginning to understand a little bit how the Father and the Son and the Spirit interact with one another. If we're worried about, wait, did the Spirit come from the Father or did he come from the Son? And Jesus said, yes, because everything that belongs to the Father also belongs to me. I'm in him and he's in me. So the Spirit that comes from us, not from him or me. So this Spirit that is in me, that I send, comes from me and tells you everything that I'm telling him to say. And oh, by the way, that's the Father's stuff too, because what the Father has belongs to me. And so then the Spirit has it to say to you. And so we need to understand that all that Jesus was saying to them that was has to offer us is present in the Spirit, because the Spirit gets it from the Son, who is one with the Father. So all of that's really important. Number 7, what does Jesus say will happen in a little while, according to verse 17? A, in a little while you will see me no more. He says that. B, in a little while you will see me. Wait, that sounds like the opposite of A, but he also says that. He says, in a little while you will see me no more, and then in a little while you will see me. See, I don't know. What's a little while? How long's a little while? That's what the disciples were asking. They said, what does he mean by a little while? How long's a little while? What's happening in a little while? What? And then there's another little while, and they seemed very confused, but they didn't want to ask him, so they were asking each other, and Jesus knew they were asking. So we don't know either fully what he means by, and well, we're pretty sure that when he says in a little while you will see me no more, he's talking about his death on the cross. And he was gone. And then in a little while you will see me. Now, was that talking about the resurrection? Was that talking about the second coming? Well, we don't really know, but we can say that they were definitely distraught. They were filled with grief, as Jesus said, when he died on the cross. And then they were filled with joy and peace when he appeared once again to them and showed him that he was not dead. And so we can certainly interpret it that way. But I would say that that was a little while. Um, and and that was a little bit of birth pains. But I wonder too if Jesus isn't talking about in the second little while, the time until he comes again, and all of this is birth pains for what will come. And I really feel like that he's, if he was warning them only about those few days in between his death and his resurrection, when he came back to be amongst them, then it would miss. That wasn't when they were put out of the synagogue. That doesn't match the other things that he was talking about in this text. So if the things that he's warning them about, the trouble that might cause them to fall away, that he wanted to tell them about, um, is is all connected with this, then we have to believe that the little while when we're our grief is turned to joy will be at the second coming. So number 8 says, to what does Jesus compare the second little while, according to verses 19 through 24? 19 through 24, he says, let's see, in verse 21, a woman giving birth to a child has pain because the time has come. And I'll let the women testify about that, but I can tell you, I didn't feel it, but I watched it and it looked painful. And it says, but when her baby is born, she forgets the anguish because of her joy. That is the only possible explanation I can think of for anyone ever having more than one child. If they have the first one, maybe they were ignorant. Maybe they just didn't know. But after they've gone through it once, why would you put yourself through that again? Well, because the anguish turns to joy, and the joy far outweighs and overwhelms the anguish. And so this is an important metaphor that Jesus is talking about. If he's calling this time when we're going through trouble, in the little while when we can't see him, if he's calling that birth pains, then we have to believe that the joy that will come at the end will far outweigh and overwhelm any pain that we experience here, so much so that we don't regret the time, and we are happy even during the pain to know that there is a coming joy that is greater. So what time period, we talked about this a little bit, do you think he's referring to when he said this? Well, maybe the 3 days when they didn't see him and then they saw him again. But I think that was just the beginning of the pains that the disciples experienced. And I think that the pains that they went through in the rest of their life in ministry far outweighed the pain and the grief, even of those 2, 3 days before Jesus raised from the dead. So I have to believe that that's what he was talking about. What do you think this means about what we will experience now until he returns? If he's talking about this time, then we have to believe that we are going to experience extreme anguish, because that's the only way I can think of to describe in words the birth pains that a mother goes through, extreme anguish. And if that's what we're going to experience, then we shouldn't be surprised when we go through some pretty hard times. In fact, I would argue that most of us are not going through as extreme of a pain and a difficulty as we might imagine birth pains to be. And so maybe we need to suck it up a little bit. and realize that it's not as bad as we're talking about it to be. And especially that may be important if this is not as bad as it might get. If we're still not yet at the extreme parts of the birth pains, then let's not be so frustrated and overwhelmed by the thing that he warned us was going to come. And he warned us so we wouldn't fall away when it happened, right? And so now here we are experiencing it. We're whining and complaining, and we're ready to throw in the towel. And he's saying, guys, I said birth pains. And so you haven't seen the half of it yet. And that's why I warned you so that you wouldn't fall away when it comes. Don't give up on me now. I hear Jesus say, are you experiencing birth pains? Yes, no, explain. Maybe you might say, yeah, I feel like I am. Maybe you might say, wow, now that you've said it, maybe it's not quite there yet. Maybe it's not as bad as I've been making it out to be. And maybe I need to be ready in case it gets worse. And then the final question, are you looking forward to the joy that no one will take away? He calls the joy that's coming the joy that no one will take away. Another reason that we might suggest that he's talking about something more long term than just his raising from the dead. That was joy, and maybe joy that they can't take away because he is still here with us and we have the advocate. But some might argue that the pain that they experienced afterwards is something that we would would be tempted to allow it to take away our joy at least. And there's going to be a day when the joy cannot be taken away, when we're no longer in this world full of sin. And that's what we're looking forward to, obviously. And so, are you looking forward to that? Can you endure the birth pains because of the promise of the coming joy? Will you stand firm and not fall away, because Jesus told us all about this and he sent the advocate to help us through it?